Have you ever looked back at your relationship with your mother and realized that she didn't show up the way that you needed, leaving you wounded in ways that you didn't even realize? Maybe your relationship with your mother looks like constant striving to meet her expectations, only to be met with criticism or silence. Or perhaps she was emotionally distant, never quite offering the love and support that you crave. For some, it might have been the lack of nurturing, where you were left to figure out how to navigate life on your own, feeling like you were just falling short. This kind of relationship can leave you with deep wounds that impact how you see yourself, how you love, and how you are showing up in the world. These unhealed wounds can follow you into adulthood, shaping our relationships, our confidence, and even our sense of self-worth. Today, we're going to unpack what it really means and how you can begin to heal from it. I'm so excited because we are going to have a special guest. Her name is Dana, and she's joining us. She is a psychologist, relationship coach, and a national speaker who helps women break down and break free from their past and make intentional choices in their lives and relationships. Dana's been through all this herself, so she knows exactly what it feels like to carry that weight and how to release it. What makes today's episode even more powerful is that Dana is going to walk us through one of her life healing exercises. It's simple but impactful technique that will help you identify and release those emotional burdens that your mother may have placed on you. By the end of this episode, you're going to have real hard tools and hands-on tools that you can use to start freeing yourself from that weight of those expectations. But before we dive into that, let me welcome anyone that's new here. Hi, I'm your host, Rose Jones, and I am just one woman with one voice, creating a space where we can all heal together. If you're on your own healing journey and you're looking for a community that gets it, you're in the right place. I would love for you to be part of our sisterhood. Just hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so that you'll never miss another episode of A Sister's Love podcast. And don't forget to join our Facebook group, Sister, Let's Heal Together. We dive deep into these conversations that we have on this podcast. We share our stories and we support each other on our healing journey.
Welcome to A Sister's Love, the podcast that helps women who are healing by having those deep conversations, giving practical advice and words of encouragement. Come on, let's talk about it.
Hello, my beautiful sisters. Welcome back to another episode of A Sister's Love podcast. And today we have a beautiful guest. Her name is Dana. And I would like her to introduce herself and give us a little backstory of why she's on the podcast today and a little bit about how her story relates to this week's topic. And this week's topic is This week's topic is the mother's womb. Can you please give the listeners a little bit backstory about you, what you do, and how what you do relates to healing a mother's womb?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. I was really looking forward to today and our conversation. So I'm a licensed professional counselor in Texas, and I was a teacher for 16 years before becoming a therapist, and I taught high school psychology. So I have there's so much knowledge in that area, and there's so much good stuff out there that can help people, and I just want to be able to share it with others. And I really resonated with your topic this week because I meet so many women, especially, I know men out there, but God has led me to work with a lot of women that have a mother wound, that have something that hurts them so deeply that it then carries into their other relationships. And it could be that it came from, typically it's some kind of unmet emotional need. Maybe it was a physical need wasn't met, and just there wasn't that closeness. It could also come from, now this is more rare, but it could come from when someone loses a mother just too young in life. And so of course their mother isn't there to meet their needs, but that's not what God designed. He wants us to have a loving mother. And by the grace of God, there are ways to heal this, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today.
Yeah. Can you give us a little your backstory on how you became a therapist and what led you to being here to this profession?
Yes. So I taught high school psychology and just loved it. It was just such a fascinating thing to do with the students. I taught mostly seniors, juniors and seniors. And parents would often come to me and say, well, my daughter is in her head. She's a swimmer. She's an equestrian, and she's in her head. And she used to be a winner, and now she's self-sabotaging. What do I do? And I would look at them and I would say, I'm just a psychology teacher. I'm not a therapist is what I would tell them. And they would say, yeah, but I need to know what to do. And so I would look at them and I'd say, well, the book says, and I refer back to what psychologists do when they work with people who are athletes. And I would say, well, the book says to do this. So the parent would go back, talk to their child about it. The child would do the things, and the parent would come back and say, oh my gosh, that was amazing. It worked. And this happened time and time again. And I thought, okay, I think God's telling me something here. Because I taught for, again, many years, and I felt like it was time to move on from that. And so I went to grad school full time while teaching, while experiencing breast cancer. I just have an amazing husband. Thank you, God. I came on the other side of everything. And I have an amazing husband who's just so supportive during that journey. And it was a natural fit. It's like I've been a therapist my whole life. God has just blessed me so much. And I think that what I'm told is I have the charism of
Healing.
right. Yeah. One of those charisms that St. Paul mentions, right? And so just such a blessing to be able to talk with someone, hear what they're saying and hear what they're not saying. And that's why I was so drawn to this mother wound, because it can be healed. People don't have to live their whole life with this deep mother wound. It can be healed.
Thank you for that. You said a psychologist and therapist different. I didn't know there was I knew it was a little different. I know the level of application is different, but can you explain to me the difference? Because I'm thinking that the people that's in my kids' school is more qualified because they are in the school to give that information.
Sure. So a licensed professional counselor has a master's degree. So we've gone to school for 2 or 3 years, depending on how long the program takes. And depending on the state, I'm in Texas, usually it's roughly 3,000, maybe up to 4,000 depending on the state of hours that you have to do after you graduate to be fully licensed before they say, you're free to go and open up your own practice, do your own thing. A clinical psychologist, they actually get to be called doctor. So they go back and they get a doctorate. That's just something I don't feel led to do, but I have so many great friends that are clinical psychologists. And then there's psychiatrists who they go to med school and then they're able to distribute medications. Clinical psychologists are able to assess people as in, oh, this person formerly, I've done all these tests. They have PTSD. They formerly have depression, where I can give as an LPC a clinical opinion.
Oh,
but it's just an opinion, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it now. Because it's kind of like when I signed up for counseling, I had the counselor, and then they're like, "Oh, I need you to see the psychologist." And I'm like, they're like, "Oh, to see if you need any medication." I'm like, "I don't want medication." I'm like, "I don't need to see." I'm like, "Oh," I'm thinking they're the ones that officially, like, you sit with them, they officially diagnose you and all that stuff, and then you go to the therapist for your weekly or your monthly meetings and stuff like that. But I thought they were the one that oversee because they had the higher degree, but they're the ones that just kind of assign the medication.
Yeah, so there are some psychiatrists, but it's more rare that they really sit down and talk about, here's Jane Doe sitting in front of them. Hey, Jane, how are things going? Oh, let's talk about your mother. Let's talk about the argument you had with your husband. Most of the time it's, what are your symptoms? What are you doing to help? What's left over? Okay, then we have to figure out something else to do because you've tried all these things. Because we always want to try to go a non-medical route when we can. That's why I tell clients when they come in their intake paperwork, because I have a private practice, is I ask them, when was your last physical? Because what if someone comes to me, they just seem so depressed. We go at it, all this, let's fix the depression. What if actually they simply have low iron and they need an iron supplement or an iron infusion, but I'm over here treating them for depression? So it's always good to go get that physical to make sure, is all this okay? Then we can deal with the stuff that's left over.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And now that I know that, that's very smart. Okay. Now I know the difference. I was not.
It's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of initials. It's like, what?
Yeah, definitely. It is, because they all thought they do fall in the same boat, but just different categories. Kind of like a doctor, I can't think of the person that's under the doctor.
A nurse practitioner, maybe?
Nurse practitioner, practitioner, and then the actual nursing staff and stuff like that. Kind of
That's
like
right.
in 3 different steps and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, very similar. That's a good analogy.
Do you have kids?
Yes, I have one son who is an adult. He's 30. He's definitely adult. And I wanted more. And God said, you get one. And I'm grateful for the one that I have. So there you go. Life is precious.
With you becoming a mother yourself, have you doing this help you with your relationship with your child? Like making a more healthier relationship with you working with children and women that deal with mother wounds?
That's so interesting that you said that. It's funny. When I was a teacher, and every once in a while, my son, when he was younger, and I'd say something to like a mother would, like, go clean up your room or whatever, he would be like, "You're not my teacher." Okay. So then I go to grad school and I become a therapist. And one day I said something, I don't know, he was going through something in life as a probably college age kid. And it was upsetting him. And I said, "Well, how do you feel?" He goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you're not my therapist." I was like, okay. So those are just things that normal mothers say, but okay, right? He popped back at me. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I think it really helps because I understand more about patterns, and I know when things are in my lane and, hey, I need to handle that. That was me crossing a boundary, being too this, not being enough of this. And then I know when, no, that's not on me. That's not my burden to carry. You can say it's my burden, but it's not my burden. And then to be able to go to God and to ask for that discernment of spirit, to ask for the gift of wisdom to understand those things. So it's definitely helped me.
Yes. I have a question mostly about like when we comes to the mother wound and daughters that's trying to break a pattern that they got from their mother. Why is it so hard for the mother to recognize that they did something when the child is trying to heal or trying to get answers to a specific question from their mother?
There's a few different answers for that, because that's a really good question that I think a lot of people need to hear that question, hear the answer. So in rare cases, maybe 10%, so not ultra rare, but rare, a person can have a mother that has a personality disorder. So that would be something like narcissism. They could have antisocial personality disorder, which you often hear people refer to as being a sociopath or a psychopath. Okay. If those tendencies, if you look up online, what are the traits of these people, and you think, wow, that really sounds like my mom, okay, then they lack empathy and they really just don't care. They truly don't care. Now, they could be overt, where everyone in the neighborhood, everyone at church is like, oh my gosh, that woman is such a narcissist. They can be so in your face. But the harder ones to figure out are the covert. They're the ones that in public are like, oh, mama, butter wouldn't melt in my mouth. And I just love my child. And I'm just such a loving mother. But behind the scenes, they're like, and they're horrible, right? Yeah, they're just vicious. So there are going to be a certain amount of women, that's who their mother is or was. Then for the rest of people, it can often be that people just don't want to see themselves that way. So when they're zinged with a truth bomb, instead of saying, oh my goodness, I've done wrong, dear Lord, forgive me, and go about reconciling with that child and asking for forgiveness and then behaving better. Because when people apologize, but they don't change, we're being manipulated. Right? Oh, I'm sorry I yelled at you. And then 10 minutes later, I yell at you. And you go, you said you were sorry earlier. I know, I said I was. Get off my back. Okay, I am. But you just yelled at me again. Like, what? So it can be this really crazy making world in many ways. And I think sometimes the shame is just so deep. And some people never apologize for their children. I was not a perfect mother by any stretch of the imagination. I had my own wounds and baggage, right? I hope that I was able to recognize the things that truly were mine and apologize. But yeah, sometimes I think a lot of times it actually goes back to pride. And isn't that the root of all sin?
Mm-hmm. But in some instance, like I hear a lot of mothers say, oh, the kids be like, oh, mom, you did this and this to me. And they be like, well, I don't remember doing that. So they don't hold the guilt or the shame because they just low-key don't remember. And I can contest to that because my daughter said something to me and then she was like, Mom, you remember when you did this to me? I was like, not even gonna lie, I don't. Like, I low-key don't remember doing that. And I'm like, I have so many kids. Well, I have 4 kids and I did a lot. And I experienced a lot. I'm like, I don't remember every detail of my parenting experience. And that's something that she held on to. And I felt bad because I low-key don't remember. And it was a big thing for her. So how do you navigate something like that?
Well, when it's that 10%, which does not apply to you, when it's that 10% and the mother has narcissism, they will say that even though they do remember it, right? So that's going to be that rare group. And it's like they all went to the same school and learned the same script where they'll say, that never happened. I don't remember that. Okay. But in just normal people, like you said, 4 children, busy life, like, baby, I don't remember what we ate yesterday for lunch, let alone that I yelled at you too much about your dirty room. Okay. So in those instances, when you know your child to be a sincere person, right? And that they're not just saying stuff to aggravate you, then I would say, if it's in the realm of possibility that you did the thing, you didn't let me go to homecoming, you pulled my arm too hard because I was acting crazy at church. Okay, let's say, yeah, that's something I would do. Sweetie, I'm so sorry. I don't remember that. So much going on. I'm so sorry that I hurt you in that way. Will you forgive me, please? Because when people say to us, okay, you hurt my feelings, and if we say back to them, I'm sorry you feel that way, that's a non-apology. But I think most of the time people simply want to be heard. It's interesting, like in marriage, and it's the same with children, with any relationship with a sibling, we want to be loved and we want to be able to give love, right? We want to be able to be seen and we want to be able to see other people. So one way is, let's pretend I'm looking at something on my phone and you and I are hanging out together, okay? And I go, oh my gosh, that's the cue for you to go, what?
Yeah. What?
Something so simple. You didn't say, gosh, Dana, that's the smartest thing you ever said. No, it's not. But you notice me. Or if I go, and you're like, Dana, that sounds like you're stressed outside. What's happening? Or, oh my gosh, you won't believe what just happened. I'm so excited. It's not the time for you to turn around and get on your phone.
Yeah.
So we want to be acknowledged. So I bet if you and your daughter, or whichever child this is, because I know you had 4, which is such a blessing. If you go back to that child and say, can we revisit that conversation? I'm so sorry. And I think you can also ask the Holy Spirit, like, Lord, if this is something you need me to remember, I invite you in, because the Holy Spirit goes where he is invited. It's like demons go where they're invited, because they're given permission. It's like the front door is open. So to explicitly say out loud, like, Jesus, I give you permission to remind me if this is something I need to remember. And he may not. We don't always know the ways of God and the Trinity.
So it's best to just, if it falls in the realms of the things that you found yourself doing during your parenthood, pretty much just apologize for it. Don't acknowledge that you don't remember. Do you let the child know that you don't remember? Like, mommy been through a lot. I don't quite remember. But if this is heavy on you, I just really want to apologize for what you say that I'm doing, or just apologize for what you feel. No, you said don't say that. Pretty much just apologize for the act they felt.
Yeah, I think you can acknowledge that, sweetie, you're saying you were in fourth grade and I came to school and I only brought half the cupcakes for your birthday party, and you were so embarrassed because the kid said your mommy is a bad, home school mommy, homeroom mommy, whatever. Okay. And you're like, don't know. I did a lot of cupcakes and a lot of kids. I don't remember. That hurts them. I think it hurts them less to know it's the truth, to say, sweetie, I'm so sorry. Could you help me to remember? Mom, you wore those overalls. That's the time you used to do your hair up. You had that thing you did. Okay, baby, I wish I could remember because it hurts me that I hurt you. Now, if your child says you beat me to a pulp and you're thinking, probably deserve to be beaten to a pulp a few times, but I never did that. That's not in the realm of what I would do if your child is sincere. But if you have that one child that just says crazy stuff and you're like, take it with a grain of salt, apologize if it smooths things over. And if you're like, no, that never happened, just move on.
Just move on.
Some people you can't please.
Yeah. So you can apologize to your kids for actions that you may not have did, just for them to move on and move past what they're feeling so they can move on to the next story or to the next chapter of their life. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's not going to hurt you. It's not really going to hurt you unless they're going on like a tour of saying my mom did this, telling everybody, or trying to make you seem like you're something that you're not. That's a different situation where they're individually having a conversation with you, and that's staying between me and you. Between you and your child.
That's right. Exactly. And you can also, I'll add another little nugget to this because I think you made some good points there. You can also ask more questions. And I don't mean like an interrogator. It's not like they're sitting there in police station, but to ask things like, so if the child says to you, you were so hateful to me in 10th grade for homecoming. Okay. Sweetie, I'm trying to remember that. Paint a picture for me. What happened? Well, you bought me that dress. Okay. And then Bobby showed up and we went to homecoming. Okay, baby, I'm not seeing the part. Remind me, what did I do that was so, your word was hateful, right? Use their words back if you can't. It was hateful. Yeah, Mom, it was hateful. Wait, what exactly did I do that I was hateful about so I can own it and apologize? And if they were like, yeah, you did. What? Because sometimes people say stuff and it happens a lot with my clients, they'll put a label on something. And when I dig in a little bit more, they'll actually tell me the opposite of what they just said. Oh, but I thought you said your son was mean to you, but then you just said he did blah, blah, blah. So where was the mean part? I missed the mean part. And they'll just look around the room. And I think it's just thinking that has gotten skewed. So I would just double check, because it could be she interpreted, well, you then went and helped my brother instead of finishing helping with my homecoming makeup. Sweetie, was that the time your brother had the 2 broken legs and the broken wrist? Because, when he called me and he needed a potty and he was 15, it was awkward, but I had to help him. Like, sweetie, what was I supposed to do? So now it's not really that you were hateful. So just ask, sweetie, paint a picture for me. Help me to understand. What did I say? Or, Mom, you looked at me and you rolled your eyes. If our children rolled their eyes at us, we didn't put up with that. That's disrespect. So when we're talking to our children, we also, or to anyone, we don't want to roll our eyes because that shows contempt. So maybe she says, Mom, you went, oh, you made that sound you make, and then you rolled your eyes. And if you're like, yeah, I do that. Baby, I'm so sorry. It didn't matter what the situation was. I should never roll my eyes at you, and I shouldn't make that sound, which is just so disrespectful. You can own that part.
That is so true. Body language is a lot. I read into a lot of body language, and it was like, or tones and body language. So I have a person that I talk to a lot, and then they'll smile while they're saying something harmful. And I'm like, you're trying to trick me. Like, you're trying to, but I'm smiling the whole time. No, you're trying to manipulate me. Stop doing that. They're like, no. And then try to convince me, like, it was a joke. I was smiling. Like, okay. The words that you said was not nice.
No. Okay. I'm so glad you just said that and told me that story, because the joke is, if I tell you a joke, we're both going to be slapping our knees and chuckling.
It's mutual.
But if I said something to you to hurt your feelings and you were like, Dana, that was so unkind. I can't believe you said that to me, that you're speaking to me in such a terrible way. And I go, it was a joke. That's passive aggressive. I'm wanting to do something to hurt you, to bring you down a peg or two for whatever disturbed reason that I have on my side. And I'm trying to do it in this roundabout manipulative way so I can be like, what? I was just joking that you're too tall, you're too short, like whatever it is. So those are people that I've learned over my lifetime. I just avoid people like that. They're not worth my time and energy. And I don't care if it's a relative, if it's, I just don't put up with people because they're showing you disrespect and they're trying to mock you at the same time.
Oh, that's good to know. It's like, I just felt, in my mind, I was feeling like, oh, they have something on their chest they want to say, but they don't want to say it. So they put it in a joke so they can actually get it off their chest. I've been holding on to this long, so I'm going to make it a joke and make it seem like it's not as serious as it is, but I'm really feeling this type of way. So I just want to get it off my chest.
And why? So if it wasn't a big deal, then just zip it, right? If it was, okay, I really didn't like what happened earlier, but I'm in a bit of a mood and it's actually not that big of a deal. I just need to smile and go about my business. But if I need to sit down and talk with someone, I need to be direct because most of the time, it doesn't fit every situation. We teach people how to treat us. Now, a random stranger comes up to us. We haven't taught them a thing. They don't know us. Okay. But the people in our life. So let's say that I have a friend that we meet every Friday for lunch. And let's say my friend is doing the stuff that you were just giving the example of. And I'm sick of it. And so I say, hey, friend, I'm not someone to be disrespected. And I find when you comment about my marriage, my height, my weight, my religion, whatever, I find those things offensive. When you choose to do those things to me, then I choose to leave. And so if we're at lunch for 2 minutes and boom, there's the zinger. Oh my gosh, I was just kidding. If I say something really hateful with a smile, I'm going to be like, excuse me, waiter, I'll take my check now, my food to go. Thank you. I'm not going to make a scene. I'm going to do what I say, just as parents. When we told our children, listen, Junior, if you do blank and blank, here's what mommy's about to do to you, right? Our kids knew we were serious because I have a feeling you're a mom like me. We didn't play around with our children. No. We were the parent of the house, and that's it. You're not going to jerk me around. You're a child. I'm an adult. So I never said things like, I will send you to Mars. There will be a truck coming by, and you'll have to leave. There's no truck coming by. He's not going to Mars. Yeah. I only said things I could follow up on. You will not go to the football game. You will not get to go to soccer. You won't get to have your friends over. Right? And I held to it. So when we let people know they can't cross that line. And a great phrase is, and I learned this from my very own therapist, because I think every therapist needs a therapist. If not, I think that's very hypocritical. Oh, you need therapy, but I don't. Please, we all need therapists. She's part of why I'm a good therapist today. And to be able to say, I'm not someone who, it's different than you better not. And now I'm finger pointing. I'm telling you about me. I'm not someone to be yelled at. I'm not someone to be disrespected. You don't have to say a lot of words, because think about with that person that you mentioned, how many times have you probably had a similar conversation with them where you're like, you're trying to manipulate me. I see that little smile. I'm not laughing. How many times do you think you've had that conversation?
A lot. And they just brush it off because you keep allowing them to do it, right?
Yes. So people will often say to me, I haven't heard this from you, but people will often say, especially about like the men in their life, they'll go, and I told him, I'm not going to put up with whatever it is. Okay. Looking at porn or something. Does he still look at porn? Okay. How many times have you told him that? Oh, Dana, I can't even count how many times. Okay. So you allow, no, Dana, did you, like a moment ago, I just said, I told him I don't allow it, but honey, you keep going back and then you married him. So you are allowing it. So we think when we say these words, and it's very much why I've started my new program for single women on how to discern between Mr. Right and Mr. Wrong when they're dating, because so many women would say to me, he brings me flowers, he holds the car door open. Okay, that sounds great. And then when he's had a couple of scotches, he calls me a blankety blippity blue. Oh, okay, well, that would be emotionally abusive. Or the other day, he grabbed my arm and jerked me through a crowd. Was there danger and he was trying to save your life? No, he was mad that my high heels were too tall and I couldn't walk fast enough. He jerked your arm. Okay, that's physical abuse. That's the beginning. Next thing is going to be a punch, a slap. I mean, it's just going to continue. And what they'll often say to me is, Dana, no, I feel terrible now. I have absolutely misrepresented, let's call him John Doe, right? Okay, you've misrepresented. Okay, how? He is a really good guy. Okay, and this is my podcast studio, but in my therapy office, I have 2 French doors, white French doors. And I say, okay, let's say these are bulletin boards. Here's a Post-it note. Brings you flowers. Healthy, unhealthy behaviors. Healthy, boom. Opens car doors. Boom, beautiful. Where do I put this one? Jerked you up by your arm. Where do I called you a blippity blip? Where do I put those? And they'll just stare at the doors. They don't even look at me. They'll just stare at the doors and they'll just blink. They know the answer, but it's something called confirmation bias. So it's almost like in this compartment, I've put good men bring flowers and open car doors. So he's a good man. It doesn't matter if he's a mass murderer. It doesn't matter if he calls me ugly names. I'm still going to go with good guy. So I call that the good guy fallacy. And it's the same with friendships, right? If I was a friendship matchmaker, pretend that was a thing, okay? Yeah. And you came to my office and you paid me $1,000 because you wanted a new great best friend that would be your best friend the rest of your life. And you gave me the qualifications that you wanted. I send you on your way. You come back. I'm like, okay, I have your results. Here we go. And I have a folder for you. And I go, so the friend is delightful. We'll have your, I'm sorry. That's someone else's folder. They're in my VIP class. So that's not for you. Okay, Dana, who do you have for me? Okay, the best friend I have for you is, she likes the same kind of music as you. She likes to dance and she loves Starbucks, right? Yeah, that sounds good. And she's going to be manipulative and gaslight you and be rude to your face and mock you by smiling as she does it, and then you'll keep going back to her. I think if I did that for you, you would get a refund, demand a refund. You'd write a really bad review online. Don't ever go to her. She's the worst friend matchmaker ever. You're like, why don't I get someone nice like the other lady did? No, you don't. You don't even get, like, if I was a store, you don't even get the clearance section. You get my as-is rack.
As is.
Right? You would be so outraged. But isn't it interesting? How many times do we do that to ourselves? No one's holding a gun to your head. No one's held a gun to my head. Why have we gone back to people? And here's why I think we do it. If we have any type of insecurity from our childhood, from the attachment from our mother, in this instance, it could be from our father, it could be from both, or whoever it is that raised you. It could be grandparents, it could be whatever, okay? Then we tend to go out in the world carrying over those behaviors of how do you connect with people because it's familiar. That's what makes it comfortable. Not like, yay, comfortable, I love this. But just in the back of our brain is saying, been there, done that. I can do that all day long. I've been doing it for decades. That's why we allow unhealthy people. Yeah.
So it's what I say all the time. We're reliving that initial relationship with our parents until we heal it. So if we had a rocky childhood, that relationship don't repeat until that relationship with your parents is healed. And that's the biggest, like one of the biggest themes that I'm having this conversation today, to help us heal that mother wound so that we can actually break those unhealthy relationships, break that cycle and move forward.
Yes, it's so true. So there's one little twist to what you said, because I think you are so on point with that. What if, though, we can't heal the wound from our past? We're going to talk about mother today, okay? Because what if there's no reciprocity? Just like when you mentioned the person in your life, let's just say it's a friend, okay?
That's the issue a lot of people's run into.
Okay, I think so. This is really common. This comes up so often, I can't even tell you how often. And let's say it's a friend and you go to them and you say, this isn't the way I can be, I'm going to be treated. So in the future, the following will have to happen. But if this happens again, then this is what's going to happen. Okay. And they tell you, I don't know who you think you are. Who do you think you are talking to me that way?
That's what.
Tell what to, okay. That friend doesn't want to reach out and shake your hand, make amends, let's hug it out and let's fix it. They don't want to. So you could have an ex in your life and you think, just love to bury the hatchet. If they tell you go to you know where, you can't make amends with them. So it's much like forgiveness. So if someone has really hurt you, let's say it's a mother, then you can forgive them. But sometimes it's a good idea to reach out to them. If it's someone who's neglected you, it's probably not a good idea, because the moment you say to them, I forgive you for being a terrible mother, and let's say they were terrible, like everyone on earth knows terrible, they're not going to own it. They're going to again be like, who do you think you are? Dare you? I don't need your forgiveness. I don't care that I was a terrible mother. You were a terrible child. Then the wound just gets deeper. So I can say out loud, in the name of Jesus, because all the healing comes from Jesus. He's the great divine physician. In the name of Jesus, I forgive my mother for, and she may have done 4,000 things. One thing would be treated me terribly. Okay, let's go back. She used to pull my hair all the time. Let's do it again. In the name of Jesus, I forgive my mother for pulling my hair. Do it again, for rejecting me. And the reason why we say it out loud, wounds and traumas invite demons in.
Yes, that is true.
And right, there could be a demon of anger, and I don't mean righteous anger, but unrighteous anger where people go too far. There could be a demon of jealousy. Maybe that parent was jealous, right? Maybe the child was taller than them and they always wanted tall children, but now they're jealous. Why are you tall and I'm so short? I mean, who knows why, right? All sorts of things could be going on. So by saying that out loud, you don't want to talk to a demon. If I told you, hey, across the street from me today, demons are having office hours, I hope you would not sign up and go. No, don't deal with demons, right? Let Jesus do the hard work. So when you say it out loud, scripture says every knee must bend. They're spiritual beings. They must bend at the name of Jesus, bend their knee, right? So it's going to help. It's part of the process. It's not the full process, but it's part of the process. We're breaking free from demonic attacks, which when someone treats us ugly and we in the back of our brain go, well, I guess I deserve that. It's not like we stood up one day and said, I promise to let people mistreat me. But somewhere we did. And the demons are watching. They're like, oh, I'm going to mess with this one for 49 years on this. All right. So just like we don't want to speak to demon, sometimes it's not healthy to try to heal that mother wound with the mother when she's not going to reciprocate. Now, I think with the wounds that your children have, just like my son has wounds from me, because we are imperfect parents, we live in a broken world, all right? We're sinners like everyone else. I don't know. Are you a sinner? I'm a sinner.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to throw that on you, but we're all pretty much sinners, okay? Right? You feel like, Dana, call me a sinner, right? So in those moments when our children come to us, yeah, we're normal people that have wounds. We can work that out. But when you have someone in your life that is so unhealthy, and the buzz phrase is to call it toxic. Okay, it's not a clinical word. You're not going to find it in any psychological journal, but we know what it means, right? Someone who's just like so unhealthy to be around. So with those people, what if they tell us, go jump in a lake? Wait, but I'm here to heal my mother wound.
Yeah. So
when that happens, what's interesting is it sounds a little crazy, but it works. That means you need inner child healing. You need to go get that. Is there?
Yeah.
So it's the thing that sounds crazy, but works is to reparent yourself. So let's say as a child, you would have paid money for a hug, but there was not going to be a hug. Either your mother was incapable or your mother was malicious, knew you needed a hug, and were like, I'm not going to hug you, even though maybe she enjoyed a hug, but she's not going to hug if she's malicious. Okay. So if you as an adult are having a triggered memory about something from your past, and even though you have the adult body, you just feel like a little kid again. If you will wrap your arms around yourself. So if you're just sitting here and you're like, okay, fine. Okay, but now let me try it if I do this to myself. Okay, it looks stupid, but I feel better. If as a little child, you felt free and alive and peaceful on a swing set, just doing your little thing, going back and forth, right? Then if you were triggered by something and you were that little girl, you may want to go get on swing sets. They don't go to school during school hours where they're going to come and trespass you or something, right? But find a park, or sit on a swing. If you had a favorite stuffed animal from when you were a child and you still have it, or you found one that looks pretty close, or you bought one off of eBay that's a replica. Mine was, and I'm not sure of your age, you look much younger than me. For me, the big doll at the time growing up was the Mrs. Beasley doll that came from the TV show A Family Affair. And if people saw her, looked her up, they'd probably recognize her. That doll was so popular. It's interesting, though. She looks like a grandma.
Oh.
So you have to look her up later. I don't mean she has a wrinkled face, but she looks like a grandma. She has these little glasses. Do you know that when I came across one of those in an antique store, I don't know, 30 years ago, I started crying because it reminded me of how much I clung to her. And she's about, I don't know, yay big. She's about the size of a maybe 6-month-old baby.
Oh.
So even though she looks like a grandma and she has little arms, okay, little legs, when I held her, that was nurturing. If you go down to my closet right now, you know what's up on a shelf? Mrs. Beasley.
Mm.
And when I went through breast cancer and had both breasts removed and had to go through the horror of all that, and I can't even tell you how many surgeries, and that's a very difficult thing. A lot of women have been through it. It's very difficult. My husband, sweetest man on God's green earth, said, "Do you need your doll?" Yeah. Grown woman. But you know what? That was soothing the little girl inside of me, not a real little girl, right? That'd be weird. Not, different voices or anything in my head. But that soothed that little girl who was afraid because her body had just been brutalized, right? So we can reparent ourselves. You can have, do you have a picture of you about 4 years old anywhere that you could access? And I don't mean in this moment, but later.
Probably later. Yeah, my mom probably will have them.
Okay. So if you took a picture of you at 4, and let's say you have some to choose from, pick the one that you're like, look at that little girl. I could just eat her up. If she's my little girl, I just scoop her up. And frame it and put it someplace where you'll see it every day. Mine is on my bedside. And that's little Dana. And so when I'm having a really big day, when I was going through the process of doing the healing work, I would say to her, I got this. I'm going to go be the adult. I'm going to handle the meeting. I'm going to sign the documents. We're going to meet with the board, whatever the thing is. I'm going to go for the interview, whatever. And I'm going to handle it. Because when she was little, her life was chaos and fear. And she didn't have any power over anything. And when she would do something normal, like, why could I? No, okay. So what happens after a while, that little part quits, and after a while, it's just dormant. So when I ask people, well, yeah, you told me a lot about what you think about this situation. How do you feel about it? I didn't hear any feeling words. Even though I would ask them, how do you feel? They would still tell me what they think. And a lot of times people just sit there and they'll look around and they'll finally say, Dana, I actually don't know what I feel. They're not lying. It's because that little part of them that kept saying, hey, I feel angry, sad, scared. After a while, it's like it just goes dormant, right? So by doing this healing work, it's amazing how God gave us neuroplasticity, which means our brain can be malleable. So let's say this part of the brain is on fire and it needs to calm down. This part of the brain is asleep and it needs to be waking up. We need a little bit of fire. If we change our behavior and our patterns, instead of our brain doing, like, let's say this is the unhealthy pattern, and we're like, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this, whatever. Our brain after a while will forget it used to do the old pattern, and it will start doing the new one, and the old connection will atrophy. Just like if you used to go a certain way traveling. Oh, I always take a left to right. Oh, but there's construction for a year. I now have to go right, circle left. After a while, you quit thinking about your old path, and then you go on your new path. And your brain says, yeah, I know what to do now. And so we can heal it. So I don't want people thinking, well, I can't heal a mother wound because of my mother. And I'm living proof it can be healed without getting that from your mother. I'm living proof of that.
So what happens with someone that's like younger and they're actually with their mother and this is happening?
That's a tough one because you typically have to go along to get along, because that kind of mother isn't going to give that child the space they need. So when I used to see younger people in my practice and I would meet the parents, because they would have to come in for sessions, and I would think, wow, that's the devouring mother. It's like everything about them just, oh my gosh, like it's hard to breathe in the room with this person. And they don't want to see anything that's their own. I would just give the child of the teenager coping skills and how to deal with it in that moment to keep themselves calm and to know you're not crazy, and just for them to escape. I actually learned when I went to college to not go home for the summers. So I would go to school instead.
So you would kind of like avoid mother at all costs as possible. Like do as much as you can to not tip her off, but enough to keep you sane.
Yes. And there's something called, again, it's not a clinical term, but it's something called the gray rock method. And before I learned about that, I called it spam and toilet paper, meaning spam the meat. Okay. If you were starving and you had to open up that little tin of spam, you could eat it. You're not going to die. Okay, you now have some nutrients in your body. But most people don't wake up saying, I'm craving spam today. Okay. Most people. It's just going to help sustain you. Toilet paper, everyone needs it. So I learned to just have very general conversations with my mom. I saw the coolest thing today. It was a parade. Yeah, parade of leprechauns. It was March 17th. And wow, they had a little St. Patrick's thing going on. It was, They had a sale on toilet paper at Walmart. I stocked up. Yeah. Did you see that TV show about the woman who got new eyeglasses? I saw it too. I mean, conversations that meant nothing, but she felt fed because I was speaking to her.
Gotcha.
But I learned if I share too much, it's going to come back on me. What a lot of clinicians will say, even though it's not a technical term, gray rock, if you pick up the most boring gray rock and you're like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's gray. It's just a lump. Okay. You have to become that boring if you have a malicious mother. Gotcha. If you have a devouring mother. If you have one that when you say, oh my gosh, I got a raise at work and you're a peer, they're going to want to bring you down. If you say, worst thing happened, they're going to pounce on it and make you feel worse. So you have to learn to keep some things close to the vest and to only share with people that have earned the right to hear about your highs and lows.
So how do you feel that nurturing aspect of it? Because in some way, somehow, you still will lack that nurturing part, and then that still will affect you in the future. Even if you can get past this interaction with her, you're still lacking that nurturing, that loving aspect that you want from your mom, which will still leave you with a wound or default for when you go into relationships.
No, you make an excellent point there. So what I've experienced with so many of my clients is God often puts other people in your world who give you that little bit of nurturing. The teacher who says, you are quite the gifted young woman and beautiful to boot. Oh, that was sweet. Mrs. Smith said that to me in the 5th grade, whatever. Okay. That people will be kind to you. The thing is, especially as women, if we don't work on healing that, we're going to attract very unhealthy men. And that's why I have my program to help women not do that, because it's a bit like, okay, if there's a herd of gazelles, right? And there's a lion waiting over to the side and the lion's hungry, the lion's going to watch. And when something spooks the gazelles, 99 of them all go, and they're ready to take off. But the lion's going to notice the one at the edge that didn't spook, didn't turn the other way to run away from the thing that they thought had spooked them. Okay, so the lion's going to watch that one. Oh, look, that one keeps walking further and further away from the herd. So when the lion finally makes his move, the 99 are going to take off, and that one's going to be like, what? and that's going to be the lion's meal. So men in the world, it's almost like we have it tattooed on our forehead that says, I have a mother wound. You can use and abuse me. And men did that to me until I got healthy enough. And I spent a summer working on healing that wound. So I thought, I think I'm a pretty loving person. I give what I didn't get as a child because God gave me that gift, that resilience. But why do I keep attracting jerks? I'm the common denominator. And so I dug in hard way before I became a therapist, probably 2 years before I became a therapist. I dug in hard to start doing that inner child work. And I lived, ate, and breathed it like I was taking a hard summer school class, and that's all I needed to focus on so I could just graduate.
Yeah.
And because I did that work, I was healthy enough to attract my husband, who, and I don't mean law of attraction, I don't believe in that as a Christian, the most loving husband that even my girlfriends who have great husbands, they always look at me and go, David, because my husband is so precious and he spoils me, but he doesn't think he spoils me. And he doesn't think I'm high maintenance. I think emotionally I'm probably high maintenance. He's like, you're really not. So he's helping by showing me that face of Christ. He's adding another layer of healing. If I hadn't have done the work I did, he would not have been attracted to me. On the first date, he would have been like, thank you, no.
No, thank
So
you.
So we have to do our work. But what's interesting is, like, let's say you come from a home where someone says, my parents, sorry, there's a hair on my face. My parents never, and I mean never, showed physical affection. There wasn't like a way to go, Johnny. Nothing, right?
Yeah.
Well, when that person, that child grows up and then have their own children, and they're like, and they just pass them and nuzzle them and do all those fun things and hug them and add a boy, add a girl and tussle their hair. Mm-hmm. Those children, when they get old enough to hear the stories of their parent, and they'll be like, what? Lorna? Papa didn't do what? But Mommy, you hug and kiss on me. I know, baby. Because God is a God of restoration and abundance. He is not a God of scarcity or lack.
But it's some people that does repeat the pattern too. So
oh gosh, yeah. Oh yeah. Generationally, it was interesting that I won't go into the whole story. We could talk about it off camera if you want to hear it. Where I met a very distant relative. We were great granddaughters of great grandfathers that were brothers. We didn't know we were family. And we met in this interesting circumstance, and I hear her say a family name, and I'm like, well, that's a family name. And then she's like, yeah, but we're from this part of Texas. I'm like, that's where mine are from. And we find out we're related. She filled in a story about my great-grandmother that made me understand how the generations had come before me. It all made sense because I never understood. How was this woman that passed when I was 2? I don't remember her. Why was she so loving? That this is what's come down the family tree. It never made sense to me. And that cousin, when she told me that story, so many puzzle pieces just came in, different little glimpses of things I'd heard over the years. Oh, and I had my answer. So it can be passed down generationally. And there are healing prayers that most Christian churches, I'm Catholic, our church definitely has these. There are prayers to break generational trauma, spirits, attacks that have been passed down generationally. Yeah, those can be broken in the name of Jesus.
Well, that's good to hear, because a lot of people, like, what I noticed is my father was an alcoholic, and they was like, I was like, I know because my father was an alcoholic and he did drugs, that is embedded in my DNA because he did it before I was born. So when his sperm hit my mom's egg, that was embedded in my DNA. Doesn't mean that I'm becoming an alcoholic or a drug addict, but if I'm in that environment, I'm in that environment that's conducive to it, I'm more likely to be attracted to it, and I'm more likely to go towards it. And I think that's with the generational trauma when it comes to people that's in families that have these kind of issues, like anger issues or abandonment issues, or people that go through certain situations or domestic violence, is because if you're put in that environment, most likely it's easier for you to be vulnerable to those situations.
That's the word. You nailed it. That's the word I was thinking when you were describing that, and you just use it. You're more vulnerable. You're more susceptible. So you have to stay so strong that you don't fall back into that, right?
I don't even drink wine coolers. I don't drink nothing. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't do anything. It was like, why? Like, just have fun. I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand.
That's
I don't have the same luxury that you have because of my family history and what I go. And they just look at me. Some people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, are you crazy? Like, you're just making this stuff up. You just don't want to do it. I'm like, some people just don't understand that.
Research is on your side.
Yeah.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. They just don't know the research. Right? But anyone who pushes you to do something you're uncomfortable with, I don't care if it's swimming. If you're like, this body can put on a bathing suit, but I'm sitting on the lounger. I don't get in water. It's not my thing. Why are people pushing us to get in the, like, that's not a very kind person. Once we let them know it's not my thing, we need to move on. And why do we hang around people that keep pushing us to do things we don't want to do? Because I'm like you. I didn't come from a family that had those particular issues. I just have heard enough stories in my life. I thought, well, most people try to quit smoking. Why would I start?
Yeah.
I don't think being drunk is attractive. I think as a woman, it's dangerous because that's when a lot of women get attacked. And I thought, I don't want to make a fool of myself. So I've just never done those things.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful. But yeah, you're definitely more vulnerable. So you are so smart that you've picked the pathway you have. Good for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And so while we bring this to close, is there any techniques or skills or tools that you can teach the listeners today that they can use to start to actually heal their mother wound?
Yes. So part of it is acknowledging what happened. Okay. So if, like one time, I shared the story with you when you and I first were talking about doing this interview, that I'm an adult and my mother contacts me and she says, I just went to see my therapist. Okay, that's lovely. And she told me I need to tell you something. Okay. You need to be my soft place to fall. Okay. I wasn't a therapist then. Okay. I wasn't anywhere close to it. And I felt an immediate revulsion at the idea. Now, I'm a typical daughter. How are you doing, Mom? How did the thing go? Did it turn out okay? Did the bake sale go well? Did your friend come over and celebrate your birthday? Okay, so I did the typical checking in, how are you things. Something within me, I believe it's God, said, no. It's not like she's 80 and now I have to look after her. That's not what it was. It meant you're going to listen to everything I have to say about everything, and you don't have a choice. You're now going to be my therapist before I ever decided to become one. And I said, no, I'm the child. You're supposed to be my soft place.
Exactly.
Right? Because as a mom, they could be grown. They're still your kids, even though they're grown. They still come to you. Mom, what do I do about my boyfriend? Mom, what do I do about I need to get a new car? Should I buy this house? Okay. So I knew to push back on that by the grace of God. Well, my therapist said, because I taught psychology, I knew just enough to be dangerous with it. And I said, either you misunderstood the therapist or you've gone to a very bad therapist. I'm not sure which one it is. So I don't want to carry that with me. What I've done myself, and I've taught my clients to, you can get sticky notes, write down things on there that you don't believe in, set it on fire, crumple it, throw it in the trash, do something. So, and then to have one that you keep that says what's true. So I could say on here, I'm not your soft place to fall. I reject that. And then I could say on this one, yeah, I am responsible for my well-being.
I actually do that in a moment. I'll have a conversation with someone and they'll say something to me and I'm like, yeah, I don't want that. So you can keep that. That don't belong to me. That is yours to deal with. And they'll look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, thank you. And they'll be like, what? I would literally stop the conversation. It's like, no, thank you. I don't want it. That is not nice to bear. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? No, you're trying to give me something that I don't want. And I'm okay with it.
That's right. That's wisdom. That's God allowing you in that moment to tap into that charism, that gift of wisdom where you instantly know I'm pushing back on that. That doesn't mean some things don't slip around and we carry, and later on we're like, why am I carrying this? Okay, that's going to happen. But I love that you have that ability to say no, because right's right, wrong is wrong, and I'm not going to participate. To do something physical like a Post-it note, or to go out to a stream someplace, a river, and to pick up a rock, not where people are watching and it's going to be weird, but just to say, I let go of whatever this is, this burden that I'm supposed to do this, or I'm not doing this, and throw it. Because it's interesting, the Greek origin of the word cast means to furiously hurl. It's not like, oh, I cast it at the foot of the cross. No.
Like throw it.
Oh, and to release it so that you're not carrying. Because what Satan wants is for us to zip it and isolate and feel so alone with this horrible burden. Satan says, well, we don't want to listen to Satan. God made us to be in community. Why else would he give Eve to Adam, Adam to Eve? We're meant to be in community. We're not meant to be alone, and we're not meant to carry other people's stuff. Because even if we do carry it and we think, oh, I'm just a people pleaser, how is that charitable to the person doing the inappropriate thing to join them in their inappropriate behavior, to play a part? How are we helping them get to heaven? And the ultimate goal in life is to love, worship God, love our neighbor, and get there to be with him eternity. That's the goal. And if everything we do has to go that direction, including being charitable by saying no to some people.
And it's kind of like go to that old saying, you can teach somebody how to fish, or you can get someone to fish, they'll eat for a day. But if you teach them how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. So it's that like, are we doing them a disservice by actually just giving them the fish, giving them what they want, and so that they can feel good and they can be fed for the day? Or should we be teaching them how to fish so they can be fulfilled for the long run?
That's right. Absolutely. Because we want things to be sustainable, because when we feed them for a day, guess what? They're back the next day.
Yeah.
That's why we want to lift people up. Hey, I got to move up. Let me reach my hand down. I'm going to help you. Oh, look, someone's ahead of me. They're going to help me. That's the pathway. That's that pathway to heaven. So excellent analogy that you were using for the Bible. That was great.
Yeah. And also like the people pleasing thing that you said. It's like people don't understand, like, yeah, I'm a people pleaser, but that's our adaptation. It's something that we learned to adapt to because we couldn't work on ourselves. We couldn't be the people that we wanted to be. We can't say the word no. So we use that as an excuse. I'm just a people pleaser. I just want people to be happy. No, you're just saying it because you don't have the capability to say no or to stand up for yourself.
You're so right. And I love your use of the word adaptive. It was adaptive as a kid who survived that household. Maybe I had to do that. But now as an adult, it's going to be maladaptive. And what blows people's minds, because I do a presentation, I do a lot of talks and retreats at different churches and things. And I have one on people pleasing. And what blows people's minds are, and people hearing this are going to be like, what? People pleasing is inherently selfish.
It is. I agree.
Right? You're doing it for, I want to feel better in the moment. Again, it's not charitable if we're doing things for people they can do for themselves and they're not sickly or really in need, right? We're not being charitable. So it's selfish. So it's not good to be like, I'm just a people pleaser.
Yes, I totally agree. I used to think that me being a people pleaser was going to help me heal myself and it's going to help me become a better person is what I used to think that was what God wanted for me. And I had to tell my sister that she's like, well, I feel like my calling is to help people. And I said, you got to understand the difference between helping someone and being a people pleaser, because she think that you're saying yes to everything that they want you to do. You're not saying yes to everything that you want to do. For you to help people doesn't mean you have to say yes. For you to help people mean that you have to be aligned with who you are so you can fully show up for them in a way that's going to help them and you.
Exactly. Because every time you say yes to someone, you have to say no to something else of your own. I'm not getting the rest I need. I'm not able to go grocery shopping and get decent food to eat. So I'm healthy. I'm just on the go eating junk food. And now I feel sickly. It doesn't help anyone in the end. And what's interesting, when we have people in our lives that we're just going out of our way for, just at an extreme, how they'll do less and less for themselves. And when it's our turn to be like, hey, I'm the one over here, SOS, I need some help. Suddenly they're too busy. They don't care that our parent got sick. They don't care. Wow. Because a relationship shouldn't be tit for tat, quid pro quo. It should be reciprocal. Girl, I love and help you, and you love and help me at times. You need more, I need more. It just goes back, but it's not one direction.
It's not.
Yeah.
And then people become very entitled.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the word of the last 10, 15 years?
Entitled, like they just expect that this is what you're supposed to do because you've been doing it for so long. And then once you reciprocate, no, I don't no longer want to do it. They feel like, oh my God, like how dare you? How dare you
got it
to me? How dare you reject me? How dare you say you're not going to do this to me when you've been doing it to me? And they cannot wrap their mind around it. Now you become the worst person in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll just make you feel so bad that you don't know. Some people will just cave in. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is that charitable to set someone up by participating in a role where they're most likely going to do that? It's not fair to poke the bear. And so we're not helping them get to heaven by doing it.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, before we end this episode, can you please give the listeners some advice that you think they should hear right now to help them navigate this journey?
Yeah, I think a helpful thing is to do a timeline of your life. So to get a piece of paper, just draw a line down the middle, positive and then negative. So let's say somebody was born in 1983. Okay. They could put on the left side, born 1983, or they could put it in the middle because maybe they were born, but the stories they've heard were, we didn't think you'd make it. They had to keep performing little chest compressions. You had some ribs broken. Your birth was traumatic. Okay, I've heard the stories, so I'll put it in the middle, right? Or I don't remember this, I was 2, but we moved to Canada. Okay, I'm going to put that on the good side because I've loved growing up in Canada, right? At 13, my grandpa died. He was my dad's dad. I loved him so much, and I felt so to look at a timeline can help you to see the wounds that need to be forgiven. And sometimes the wounds are, I need to forgive those people. And sometimes it is, okay, I need to forgive them 50%, like all the way, but they have 50%, but I own some of it. So in the name of Jesus, I forgive myself for blankety blank. Or maybe I had 1% of it, or maybe I had 0% of it. And then also, when you do that, you can then step back. You may have to tape some pieces of paper together. And you can see, wow, look at how God showed up for me. And so often we want to focus on the negative, but now you have things that you can start working on. And you can start healing and praying about and seeing, how is it showing up in my life? The thing that happened when I was 7, oh my gosh, it's still showing up in this way, though, with the men I choose to invite into my life. Yep. So I think to find a relationship coach, a therapist, someone who can help you work through that. And so that's what I would advise.
Yeah, I agree with that because I always tell people you can't heal what you don't know. You can't see.
Exactly.
You have to be aware of what's going on with you. And I think that's the beautiful first step to doing it. Just creating a timeline of the things that happen to you and good, bad, indifference.
That's
and
right.
Make that list and then start putting names to it and start identifying what these things are actually is so you can know what type of help you need.
Exactly. Because if you really work at it, like I did that summer many years ago, in 90 days, the research shows you can go from an insecure to secure attachment. So when I used to take 90 days, that's why I created a program for women. So if you're a woman and you feel like you have been drawn to men who just are the wrong man for you, either not a good guy or he's just like, why is he never the right guy? Something's off here. You can be healed in 90 days, and that's what I teach women to do. So if they want some free goodies and tools on how to do that, if you go to clarityplease.com, CLARITY, please.com, there are goodies and things that people can use there. Some tools to help them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You send it to us.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Yes. Okay. Beautiful.
So y'all better click it.
Yes. Okay. Good. So click that. And it's interesting though, but in 90 days, your brain can heal. So when I used to take those attachment quizzes, and there are some standard ones that you can find online out there, then I would always rate insecure every time. Insecure, right? Then there are 3 types of insecurity. Do you want to know about those, the 3 types?
No, I know them, but I think the listeners
know. Okay. So there's the avoidant. That's where we tend to distance ourselves from people, and we're hyper independent, not like a good old American independent, but where I don't need anyone. Okay. And then they're the people that will suppress emotions. Okay. There you go. Okay. Right. Okay. We don't want to go to extremes, but it's going to happen. Okay. Then so ambivalent is, do I want to come close? Oh, no, I can't. Oh, do I want to come? Oh, I want to pull away. It's this back and forth. And that's where I landed, right? I craved closeness, but I feared abandonment. The minute a man in my life would do something that, like we were talking earlier about, if I comment on something and they don't respond like, hey, what's going on? How are you? Tell me about it. Then I would feel abandoned and start shutting down and needed a lot of reassurance. Like, okay, you're over here petting a cat or something, but like I'm a grown woman. Okay. Then the last one is disorganized. This one is all over the place, very conflicted, absolutely fears intimacy, but they'll show very unpredictable behavior. He was hugging me. Now he's across the room. What is the mood shifts? When I went through the healing process and I took the quiz again, I'm in the secure category. And I actually did it again recently. I thought, okay, let me just double check this before I launch this program of mine to make sure I'm actually speaking truth here. And I went through and I answered all the questions. So they're written in such a way that you can't just easily tell what the answer should be. Mm-hmm. And there it was, that really high end of secure score. And I was like, I remember I showed my husband, look, babe. He's like, good to know.
Good to know.
He was like, okay, I know you are. And if I can do that, okay, I'm highly educated. I have a lot of experience in my field, and I'm older and I'm further ahead on the journey. Other than that, I'm just a person. I'm just a normal person. I'm no more special than anyone else. So if I can come from what I came from and get healing, everyone can get healing.
Yeah.
If they want it.
Do the work. Yeah, you just got to be willing to do the work.
Yeah. And it's hard because sometimes you cry, sometimes it's emotional. Right. And there were times that my husband, when we were first married and there was still a little bit of the work to do in that area, something could trigger me. It really wouldn't have anything to do with him. And he learned to just say, "But I sit in here with you?" But he knew to sit at the opposite side of the room because my childhood was so chaotic. There was so much physical abuse in it and different things that I startle very easily. I need time to process. And then after a while, he'd say, could I sit like at maybe the edge of the bed? And then finally close enough where I could collapse on him. But if he tried to come in and just love on me, everything in me would say no, because I wasn't used to receiving that love. But he has been the next layer of healing because he's imperfect. I'm imperfect, but he shows me the face of Christ every day. And he loves the adult me and he loves that little me. Years ago, he surprised me. He does a lot of things like this. He surprised me with an Easter egg hunt one Easter.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, I'm not a morning person. I'm like, okay, you want me to go outside? And I see whatever plant you planted later. Thank you for the way you do our garden. No, you really will want to see this. And I go out and my jaw is just hanging and I'm looking around. And it was adult-size eggs, little eggs. Sure, there was some candy because, hello, the little girl in me does still love a lot of chocolate and things, right? So I'm good with all that. But there were gifts in there for me, like an adult woman, like pretty jewelry and necklaces and things scattered throughout the beautiful backyard he's made for us. Why did he do that? Not because we have grandchildren yet, God willing, like I want grandchildren someday. Because he loves the little girl inside of me and knew it would bring joy to my face. That's who you want to marry. And that's what I help women do. Know how to discern between Mr. Right and Mr. Wrong.
And that's so powerful because I say this all the time to people, like healing starts with us. But if you're to get to ultimate healing is in relationship, because most people are broken from relationships, and to ultimate ending of that healing is through relationship, because you will never know that the work that you put in is working until you're in relationship.
That's right. Because then you're testing it versus I have a theory in my head. It's like when I come up with an activity for one of our marriage enrichment retreats, I don't know how it will work until we actually do it. And then I'm like, okay, that worked. And I think the other little piece of this as we're wrapping up here is it has to start with us. We then have to test it out in the world to make sure, right? And that could be including rejecting a bunch of people that aren't healthy for us. Yes. So maybe part of it's just cleaning up kind of house in a way. It ultimately goes back to Jesus is the divine physician. And it's like that old joke where the guy drowns and he goes to heaven and he's like, St. Peter, what the heck happened? Okay. I was drowning and I was like, God, and God said, I sent you a boat, helicopter, all these, and you were like, no, God will save me. I was trying to save you, right? And it's funny, even telling something as silly as that little story that we've heard a bunch, I still get those Holy Spirit goosebumps when I do that, because God wants us to be healed, but he will go where he's invited. Because if we're like, I'll do it on my own. No, every grace we have is from God, and he doesn't want us being the walking wounded who then wound other people, because even the mothers who are cold and maybe malicious, narcissistic, they're still children of God. They're still his children, right? But they have to want to invite God in. So one of the biggest questions, or most often questions that I'm asked, is when someone has someone that probably a narcissist in their life, they'll say, but do they know it? And they can't help it. Okay, they know they may not know officially that's the label, but they know they're manipulating people. And so while you and I can be smacked down and have some shame put on us, maybe some shame that needs to be there, some righteous shame when we're acting inappropriate, we're not being godly, okay? It's to draw us back to God. But when someone is so lost that they do not acknowledge that they have shame. So if you think about the people in your life that walk around like, oh, I'm so special and I'm better than you, and they look down their nose at you, when you see that, if you almost look behind them, just theoretically, they're about this small. Because why are they acting, I'm the best and one's better than me, and I'll tell you, I'm the smartest person in this room. Why are they telling you who they are versus showing you?
Exactly. I always say that.
You got it.
I always look at them like, when people do stuff like that and I see them, like, I'll just pray for you. Like, I'm just going to pray. The only solution for this right here is it's out of my hands.
That's right. And sometimes we have to give those people to God and just say, I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you from way over here, though. Yeah. This is not safe. It's not holy. It is contaminating my life. It's not contributing to my life. Yes. And so when someone is constantly disturbing your peace, they do not honor their word. When you go to them and you are righteous and you go to them in such a loving way with the opportunity for them self-correct, and they become defensive, oh, I was just joking, all the stuff we talked about earlier, and they will not go out of their way for you, but you've gone out of your way for them, that means you can't trust that person. And so that means they have to be at the outer edge. All they get to know is you exist.
Yeah.
If they have 3 of those qualities, they get to be much closer. But if not, if you think about it, Jesus had different circles of friends.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. 100%. Well, now that we're coming to end, can you please tell the listeners where they can find you on social media, your website again, and again, just a little bit again about that program?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So if they want to find me for speaking engagements and things, if they go to Dana Nygaard, DANANYGAARD, my name is actually, I think, on the screen there, .com, you can see my different speaking engagements. You can get to my counseling website. I only see people in Texas, though, for counseling, but anywhere in Texas, because I can do the online counseling. And then my program of, if they go to clarityplease.com, that's where they can get into the different tools and things that I offer to help people with this. And I felt that the Holy Spirit put on my heart to work with women. So men need this too, but what I work with is I work with women in this capacity, mostly single Catholic women. However, our Protestant sisters are welcome to join the community. It comes from a theological viewpoint as a Catholic. There's so much overlap that we have, that there's not going to be anything. I don't think it's going to make people run screaming for the hills, but that's where God's put me to do this work, to be able to reach more women and help them to not marry men that it's just going to be a burden and just so much additional pain. And life is hard enough. You need a champion by your side.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. And I'm looking forward to hearing what people have to say about this episode, because I know it's going to help so many people and we're going to have so many questions. So I'm so excited.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. You're delightful, and you're a little mini therapist already, because you had quite a few of the insights already down. So I don't know, maybe you'll have some extra initials behind your name soon.
I was thinking about it. I keep going back and forth with it. I keep going back and forth. I'm not 100% sure. It requires a lot of education. So it's just finding the time to do it. But I am definitely looking into that.
I think you could, and it's about 5 years of paying a lot of money and not getting anything in return. It really is. It's about 5-year investment before anything even happens.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to do it on the side, but it's just been incredible because I get to speak to people like you. So God bless you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
All right. You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Before we wrap up today, I just want to take a moment to thank you for being here with us on this healing journey. And today's conversation was about the mother wound and emotional baggage that we carry. If this resonated with you, know that you're not alone. Healing from these deep wounds take time, compassion, and patience, but you already took it the first step just by tuning in today. Next week, we're shifting gears to dive into something so many of us struggle with, and that is survival mode. You know, that feeling of just getting by or always on edge, waiting for the next bad things to go wrong. It's exhausting, and it will keep us from truly healing. We'll be joined by Zay, accountability counsel and a co-founder of Total Freedom Network, who's going to help us understand what survival mode really is and how it shows up in our daily life. And most importantly, how to break free from it. If you've been feeling stuck and drained, this is one episode you don't want to miss. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you don't never miss another episode of A Sister's Love podcast. And don't forget to join our Facebook group, Sister Let's Heal Together. We're going to continue this conversation and share our stories and support each other along the way. So until next time, take care of yourself and remember, healing is a journey, not a destination. We're all in this together. I'll see you next week. Signing out, your sister do love. Bye.